Welcome to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison.
I'm Molly, a former skeptic, now full-time energy healer, author, and your resident science meets spirit nerd.
And I'm Madison, a born and raised witch, teacher of the craft, and owner of not one, not two, but 3 metaphysical businesses.
Together we dig into low-effort witchcraft, spirituality, and the science that backs it all up, all with humor, heart, and a sprinkle of chaos.
So whether you're a curious skeptic or a seasoned witch, find a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's demystify some magic.
Howdy doody, friends.
Howdy doody.
Howdy doody. I am excited to continue learning about the Greek Pantheon with my dear friend Madison here, who I feel like knows everything about this compared to me, who knows nothing.
The breadth of my knowledge has expanded drastically in pursuit of this series. I would say I knew about 20% of what I now know.
Great. I love it. I'm excited about it.
I've been having a lot of fun, and you guys have had a lot of really great suggestions of other series that we could do. Somebody suggested that we do the Archangels, and I am obsessed with that idea. I would love to do the Celtic gods, the Norse gods. So if you have any pantheons that you want to learn about together, leave your comments, your suggestions.
Hell yeah.
Because I am all in on learning about all the deities. I've been having a lot of fun with this.
Yeah, I've been having fun with it. I just get to sit and listen.
Isn't it fun? Pretty fun.
Before we get started, though, what was your magic moment of the week?
I bought tickets to come to Maine.
Yay!
It's happening.
Whoa! And the crowd goes wild.
Finally, I've been bullied long enough.
Hey, we got her to watch Aladdin. Now we got her to come to Maine. What are we going to get her to do next, folks?
I don't know, but I would love if we didn't find something new to pressure me into doing. Personally, I would love if the next thing that we really got behind is me just doing whatever I want.
Yeah. I support that. I support that.
And to be fair, I've always wanted to go. It's just been like a timing thing. And you always want to go to Disney World, so it makes more sense to come here.
Disney World. When are we going to Disney?
I don't know. Well, you're flying back with me to Florida, so maybe we go to Disney.
Pretty much, yeah. Maybe.
Anyways, what was your magic moment?
You know, I had a really good one when you were talking. I believe you. And then I didn't write it down, and I was like, oh, I'll remember.
Do you want me to keep talking about my trip to Maine so you can think?
Yeah. Please
Okay. So back to me, everybody. What's really important here is I'm going to Maine because Molly is going to be a part of my book, The Grief Grimoire, coming fall 2027. Woohoo!
Yay!
The premise of the book is that I am interviewing people who have become like mentors to me in my spiritual practice in the wake of Linda's passing, and it didn't feel right to do that without Molly Donlin. So we're going to talk about all things energy work and somatics and Reiki and how they pertain to grief work, and that's going to be a part of the Grief Grimoire.
I'm so excited. Yeah, Reiki was a huge part of my grief journey when my grandmother passed. So I'm excited to share some practices.
And so instead of doing it over Zoom like we do everything else, I said, actually, let's make this expensive.
Put that advance to work.
All right. Take 2. Molly, what was your magic moment this week?
I can't remember the one I was going to say, so I'll say a different one. My magic moment is that I cleaned my closet yesterday.
Wow.
My closet in my bedroom has been non-functional for the better half of a year and a half. I don't know what it was. I literally texted Chelsea and I was like, what is the transit happening right now that is making me and my spouse both want to declutter and deep clean our house? Because that's all I did this weekend and I loved it. I took 6 trash bags full of things to donate out of this closet. And now it's functional. It's not perfect, but I can see my sweaters again. And then I did a smoke cleanse of the entire house. And I feel awesome. Renewed motivation, renewed momentum, renewed energy, just I'm ready to kick some ass and take some names. So, you would think I wrote a book about doing this. You would think my house would be spotless. I wrote the book because I need the book. I wrote the book I need. And I'm going to say it felt great.
Good.
Okay, who are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about the gods of power, sovereignty, and the forge. We have Zeus, Ares, and Hephaestus on the docket. And I will be completely honest with you, this is kind of the episode that I've been dreading just a little bit. Zeus, Ares, and Hephaestus are not like easy, soft entry points into the Greek pantheon. They're very complicated, very like morally, ethically messy, and especially in Zeus's case, like very like genuinely difficult to work with, especially if you ever have had complicated relationships with authority, father figures, or abuse of power, which I think is all of us right now. We've talked a lot about Zeus within the rest of this series, and it's not really ever been in a good light. In fact, I think the most positive story we've told about him is just with Artemis, he just gives her what she wants.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. And so I didn't want to exclude these deities because I think they're important to talk about. And some people do work with them and have positive relationships with them. And I think that there's like space for both. But I am also a little nervous because, again, they're complicated. But the three of them together tell a really important story about power, what it actually is and where it comes from, and what happens when it's misused, rejected, or difficult. Zeus is the power at the top of the hierarchy. Ares is power in like its most raw and unfiltered form. And Hephaestus is a very creative power. I feel like I have to make an altar to Hephaestus after this because it made me so sad reading his mythology.
Yeah, I can only imagine given what I've read in the Neon Gods series.
Yeah, so this is like, I don't want anybody to be like, oh, fuck this episode. I like, fuck Zeus, fuck Ares, like, fuck these people.
Zeus.
Fuck Zeus, like, fuck these patriarchal power systems, whatever. This is for people who have a complicated relationship with power, which I do think is everybody. So first, I want to talk about the Greek understanding of power. Just like love, there are a lot of words for different kinds of power in the Greek language, in Greek society. And I think that framework is important to kind of like explain why these deities are, one, so morally complex, but also ways that their energy might be useful for you. So first, we have Kratos, which is raw power, strength, and might. This is the ability to compel by force, which is Ares' domain. It's like that pure physical and energetic force that kind of can like push through walls and boundaries. Kratos is value neutral in the Greek understanding. It could be used well or badly depending on the one wielding it. Next, we have Arche, A-R-C-H-E, which is sovereign authority. It's the legitimate right to rule and govern, which is Zeus's domain. It implies both power and responsibility to wield it justly. It can also become tyranny when that power is misused. And the Greeks understood it as one of the most dangerous forces. Then we have dynamis, which is latent power, the potential that has not yet been expressed. It's the capacity to do something that has not yet been done, which is Hephaestus's domain. There's also hybris or hubris, which is the transgression of proper limits, overreaching, arrogance, or the assumption that you are above the natural order. The Greeks considered this the root of almost all tragedy. All three deities in this episode have complicated relationships with hubris. Zeus commits it repeatedly, Ares is accused of it, and Hephaestus is often the target of others' hubris in how they treat him. And then lastly, we have Themis, which is divine law, natural order, and right conduct. This is the force that Zeus is supposed to uphold but frequently violates. It's the standard against which power is measured, and the reason working with Zeus requires holding the full complexity of who he is.
Yeah.
So something that I really want to touch on before we get started is the father wound. There's going to be a thread that you notice through all three of these deities, which is the father wound. Zeus is quite literally the father of most of the Olympians, and his parenting is, to put it mildly,
not great.
Not great. He swallows his children, abandons them, favors some over others, and wields his authority in a way that leaves something to be desired.
Mm-hmm.
Ares is Zeus's son and one of the least favored, and Hephaestus is either Zeus's son rejected at birth or Hera's son born without Zeus at all, and was thrown off of Olympus by a parent.
Wild.
So working with these three often means working with inherited experiences of power. Maybe what was modeled for you about authority and who gets to be powerful, maybe what you absorbed about whether your anger was acceptable or whether your creativity was valued. Maybe whether you were wanted. These are obviously not light topics. Again, why I'm a little nervous, but I really wanted to touch on some of those wounds before we get started.
Mm-hmm.
So starting with Zeus, king of the gods, king of the sky, god of thunder, justice, hospitality, and sovereign authority. Zeus is the king of the Olympian gods, the most powerful deity in the Greek Pantheon. He's the lord of the sky and thunder and the upholder of divine law, oaths, hospitality, and justice. He is also one of the most morally contradictory figures in all of mythology. He's the god who is supposed to embody justice but repeatedly violates it, the upholder of oaths who breaks his own, and the king who rules by both wisdom and brute force depending on the day. This contradiction is kind of the point of Zeus as a figure. The Greeks were not naive about power. They understood that people and structures entrusted with the most authority were also the most capable of abusing it. Zeus is not supposed to be a role model. He's more of like a mirror. He reflects back the full complexity of what power looks like when it is both enormous, unchecked, and wielded by someone who is genuinely capable of both justice and cruelty. I really do think Zeus is the most human of the Greek gods.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
His Roman equivalent is Jupiter, and his astrological influence of expansion, authority, luck, philosophy, and the king archetype definitely translates with his Greek character.
Yep.
Jupiter energy is the feeling of genuine confidence and of moving through the world with authority, expansion, and abundance. Zeus at his best is that. Zeus at his worst is the abuse of that energy. So, his mythology. Zeus was the youngest child of the Titans Kronos and Rhea. Kronos, warned by a prophecy that his children would overthrow him, swallowed each one at birth. Rhea, determined to save her last child, wrapped a stone in swaddling clothes and gave it to Kronos instead. She hid Zeus on Crete, where he was raised by the nymph Amalthea and her goat, whose broken horn became the cornucopia. Fun fact.
Ooh.
Zeus grew up in secret and then returned, forced Kronos to vomit up his siblings, and led the Titanomachy and became king. He has the original daddy issues, is what I wrote.
Zeus's daddy issues embodied.
Right? Like,
yeah.
I just feel like I do have a little bit of sympathy for him there. Like, the man never stood a chance.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about them all. Like, your dad swallows you, and then you're just supposed to go on to be perfectly normal and well-adjusted.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you can't say what you would do if your dad swallowed you.
Because you'll never know.
You'll never know. So, put yourself in Zeus's shoes.
Not that that excuses his terrible behavior, but...
No, but...
it's important to understand.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Titanomachy princess was the 10-year war between the Olympians and the Titans princess. Okay. Sorry, we're a mess. We continue to be a mess. We will always be a mess.
Oh, you thought this was a serious podcast?
I've got bad news. Bad news. The Titanomachy was the 10-year war between the Olympians and the Titans. Zeus freed the Cyclops, who gave him the thunderbolt. And I'm going to be honest, couldn't find any pronunciation of this word, so I'm just going to say the 100-handed giants from Tartarus. Just look it up. It's a very long word that I'm not even going to attempt.
Sure.
I do my best around here.
I will say, can I just interrupt you one moment?
No.
I went to a conference a couple weeks ago. I went to Sponsor Games, and my question to people to get to know them was, what would your Tartarus be?
And I love that. Everybody saying their Tartarus in the comments of our Underworld episode is so funny to me. I'm obsessed with it.
So good. So good. Such a good icebreaker question if you need one ever.
Mm-hmm. So Zeus frees these creatures from Tartarus, and with their help, the Olympians defeated the Titans, and Zeus became king. Zeus's sexual conduct across mythology is extensive, complicated, and frequently coercive. His affairs include Io, Europa, Leda, Ganymede, Semele, Alcmene, Danae, Persephone, Demeter, Leto, and many others. Some of these affairs are mutual, but most involve deception or force. I really don't want to gloss over that. We've talked about it at length, but it feels important to say again here. These myths really encode real cultural beliefs about power and divine entitlement that I think also are a reflection of Greek understanding of power. And Zeus's behavior in these myths is not a model, but it is documentation of what happens when power goes unchecked. He is, again, like the ultimate corrupt king.
Yeah.
So in his mythology, Zeus's punishments are legendary and frequently extreme. I've mentioned some of these before, but Prometheus was chained to a rock for eternity for giving fire to humanity. Sisyphus pushed his boulder forever for cheating death. Tantalus was condemned to eternal hunger and thirst. These punishments show that Zeus takes transgressions of his authority extremely personally. But at his best, Zeus upholds the sacred law of hospitality between host and guest, one of the most important moral codes in Greek culture. He protects those seeking sanctuary, he intervenes when the cosmos goes genuinely out of balance, and he's the one who ultimately ensures that Persephone is returned, that Odysseus reaches home, that the long arcs of justice are fulfilled even if the short-term picture is chaos.
Okay. The good doesn't outweigh the bad for me.
I agree. So, going back to that father wound, working with Zeus almost always surfaces father wound material. His archetype is the powerful father who is capable of protection and favor, but also of favoritism, abandonment, coercion, and the casual use of his children as instruments of his will. If you maybe had a father who was powerful but inconsistent, maybe someone whose approval felt both essential and arbitrary, or whose love came with conditions, Zeus is probably already present in your psyche whether you invited him or not. The invitation here is not to worship that pattern, but to understand it and to reclaim the sovereign authority that is your birthright regardless of whether the fathers in your life modeled it well. Zeus holds the archetype of legitimate power. You can work with the archetype without endorsing the mythology's most troubling chapters. That's really what I want to enforce here, is that working with Zeus is not worshiping him.
Yeah.
And not excusing behavior. That's why I really wanted to touch on the humanness of all of these deities, because they all do things that are shitty.
Yeah, right.
And that's not to excuse any of that behavior, but it is to acknowledge them as mirrors of human behavior. And recognize that these energies have qualities that you can want to work with, that you can want to embody, that do not forgive the terrible behavior in some of these myths.
Right. Yeah.
And so sometimes working with Zeus is healing from the Zeus-like behavior that you've experienced in your life.
Yeah, I like that reframe.
So, some signs that Zeus might be reaching out include thunderstorms feeling particularly significant, eagles appearing as a recurring symbol, oak trees catching your attention, a sudden confrontation with authority, yours or someone else's, dreams of kings, thrones, storms, or vast open skies, feeling called to step into a leadership role you've been avoiding, a reckoning with father figures, biological, chosen, or institutional, lightning bolt imagery appearing repeatedly, a strong pull towards justice work, or a sense of being asked to own your power rather than defer it. Ways to work with Zeus include claiming sovereign authority in your own life, stepping into your own power, legal matters, institutional justice, and navigating systems of authority, leadership, especially when you've been reluctant to lead, protection of guests, travelers, and the vulnerable, oath-making and sacred commitments, father wound healing and reckoning with authority figures, big picture clarity when everything feels like chaos, and weather magic and working with storm energy.
Ooh, storm energy.
So approaching him, Zeus responds to directness, confidence, and clarity of purpose. He's not someone that you need to come to with excessive apology or deference. He respects those who know their own worth. He also responds to genuine appeals to justice rather than self-interest. Come with a clear request, a clear offering, and a clear understanding of what you're asking for and why it is just.
It's interesting to me that that's what he responds to, and yet a lot of the mythology that's
oh yeah, it's
not
very
what he
rules for
does.
thee, but not for me.
Yeah.
So offerings for Zeus might include oak leaves or acorns, gold and royal blue candles, red wine or dark spirits, frankincense or cedar incense, thunderstorm water, and bull imagery. And his correspondences include clear quartz, citrine, gold sheen obsidian, tiger's eye and sapphire, gold, royal blue, white, and deep purple, oak, olive, laurel, sage, cedar, and myrrh, eagles, bulls, swans, cuckoos, and thunderbolts, eagles, oak trees, scepters, the planet Jupiter, the day of Thursday, and the number 9.
Can I just say something really weird and interesting?
Always. I'd love nothing more.
And we can cut this if you don't think it fits. But I was just thinking about Zeus's thunderbolt imagery and thinking about, do you remember when Taylor Swift, her merch was in hot water because she had the thunderbolt imagery on the necklace, and that was actually not a thunderbolt. It was like a thunderbolt-like icon that the Nazis used.
So I heard of it vaguely.
Okay. Well, there's imagery that the Nazis used that's like a thunderbolt, but with just one little boop boop instead of 2 boop boops.
Really?
To use technical terms. And I was just thinking about like that abuse of power. Like it's such a thin line between thunderbolt and that imagery.
I am looking at the thunderbolt that the Nazis used.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about like how it's such a tiny shift in that symbology, but isn't it such a tiny shift in that power imbalance in general from like,
yeah,
you know, like leading with authority to overreaching your authority. I don't know.
For sure. No, I see where you're going.
Just something that came up when you said that.
That's very interesting. Okay, next is Ares, the god of war, courage, and rage. Ares is universally described as the god of war and universally dismissed as the least likable Olympian.
Really?
Yeah, Zeus himself says in the Iliad that he hates Ares more than any other god.
Okay, but Zeus's opinion, I don't have a lot of weight on.
So he is repeatedly wounded, humiliated, and outmaneuvered in mythology. He loses to Athena, gets caught in a net by Hephaestus, is bested by mortals, and is generally portrayed as the brute to Athena's strategist. But Ares is the only Olympian who consistently shows up on the side of the oppressed. He fights for the Trojans, the losing side, and the side that's been wronged. He's the patron of Thrace, a people considered barbaric by the Greek cultural elite. He is the father of the Amazons, which is the sovereign warrior women who answer to no king. And his children include not just warriors, but also Harmonia, born from his union with Aphrodite, and which is like the most famous pairing of war and love in all mythology.
Mm-hmm.
Ares is raw, unfiltered anger. The Greeks feared and dismissed this energy. But the reframe that I think is really important here, especially for modern practitioners, is that anger is information.
Right.
Ares is the deity of the anger that tells the truth. He is the kind of rage that rises when something genuinely unjust is happening.
Mm-hmm.
His Roman equivalent is Mars. And Mars, interestingly, was a far more respected deity in Rome than Ares was in Greece.
That's so interesting that Ares is not respected, because my understanding of him is not that at all.
I know, yeah.
Fascinating.
Mars was the protector of the Roman state, a father of civilization, and an agricultural deity as well as a war god. Mm-hmm. So Mars was like honored, whereas Ares was kind of like, I think it's really interesting, especially that mortals get the best of him in so many of his myths. It's like his mythology is used to say like, hey, we can like get one over on this like brute force.
That makes me sad.
I know.
Especially if he's standing up for the oppressed.
And the worst part?
No.
In his mythology, Ares is the son of Zeus and Hera. So when the Iliad goes on and on about Zeus hating Ares, that's his own son.
Daddy issues.
Zeus explicitly says in the Iliad that of all his children, Ares is the one he despises most because he loves nothing but strife. This is Zeus's assessment of unfiltered aggression, inconvenient and ungovernable, making him an embarrassment.
I hate that.
This is the father who finds his own anger too much to look at and externalizes it onto his son. I know. So unlike most Olympians, Ares switches sides in the Trojan War, initially supporting the Greeks, then fighting for the Trojans. He is the only deity who seems to make this choice based on the emotional reality of the battlefield rather than strategic self-interest. He is wounded twice in the Trojan War and retreats to Olympus bleeding and furious. Zeus tells him that he is the most hateful of the gods. He is dismissed, sent away, and patched up, then goes back to the battlefield. I know. So, two mortal giants, the Allidae, once managed to capture Ares and imprison him in a bronze jar for 13 months. He was eventually freed by Hermes, which this myth, I think, kind of exists to establish that even the god of war can be contained and humiliated by those clever enough, and that raw force alone is not sufficient. So, his relationship with Aphrodite is his most significant relationship, both mythologically and, in my opinion, energetically. They're caught together, exposed, laughed at, but they also keep returning to one another. Their child, Harmonia, becomes the queen of Thebes, and their union produces Eros and Anteros, who represent reciprocal love and love returned. And their relationship between war and love, rage and desire, is one of mythology's most persistent and meaningful pairings.
Oh.
Yeah, so at least he has his girly pop, you know?
Yeah.
So, the Amazons. Ares is the father of Penthesilea and Hippolyta, who are the Amazon queens. The Amazons are warrior women who live entirely outside the patriarchal Greek social structure. And that Ares is their father is really significant to me. His energy removed from the male-dominated Olympian hierarchy produces fierce, complete female autonomy.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Also, something I think is interesting is that Ares is at the center of the first Greek Olympian murder trial.
What?
Yeah. So, Poseidon's son rapes Ares' daughter, and Ares kills him.
As he should.
As he should. Poseidon brings Ares to trial before the gods on the hill of Athens that became known as the Areopagus, and Ares was acquitted. It was the first trial for murder in Greek mythology, and Ares was found justified. His anger in this instance was not excessive. It was the appropriate response. So at least he is not creating more daddy issues in the face of his daddy issues, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
He sees the father that Zeus is not and was that father for his daughter.
Breaking that cycle. Love that.
So the heart of working with Ares in a modern context for me is that anger is not the problem. What you do with that anger can be a problem. Anger suppressed can become depression, chronic pain, and like the slow erosion of your own sense of reality, where anger expressed without direction becomes destruction, but anger acknowledged and honored is Ares' highest form. The question Ares asks is not, are you too angry? It's, what is your anger telling you, and are you brave enough to listen? Ooh. He is the deity for anyone who was taught that their anger was too much, too intense, too unfeminine, too threatening, too inconvenient. He comes in and says, your anger is actually data, and your anger is sacred. Your anger is the part of you that has not given up on justice.
Oof.
But Ares unintegrated shows up as rage without direction, violence without purpose, and the inability to de-escalate, or the opposite, total suppression of anger until it erupts. His shadow is also the anger that has been so long suppressed that it no longer knows what it's actually angry about. It fires at everything because it was never allowed to fire at the right thing.
Oof. Do I like Ares?
I know.
Oh, man.
Sacred anger.
No wonder Zeus doesn't like Ares, because Ares is like integrating what Zeus couldn't integrate.
Yeah.
It's like Ares is like pushing back against almost like the patriarchal structure in a lot of ways. Like that tells us you need to sit down and be quiet and be demure, and anger is unfeminine and you're not allowed to be angry and blah, 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 blah. Like, do I like Ares?
Ares is who I want to channel and call on when I protest.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Like sacred divine anger. I really fuck with Aries.
Yeah, okay. I fuck with Aries.
Okay, so some signs that Aries might be reaching out is anger rising in you that feels bigger and more significant than its immediate trigger, a situation of injustice that you keep turning away from but can't stop thinking about, dreams of combat, conflict, or standing your ground, red appearing as a recurring color, dogs or vultures appearing as symbols, a physical restlessness or aggression that needs an outlet, feeling called to fight for someone or something that has no one else fighting for it, Mars transits hitting your chart hard, especially Mars retrograde. The specific anger of being dismissed, diminished, or told your feelings are too much. A sudden fierce protectiveness over someone vulnerable. Ways to work with Aries include processing and directing anger, giving rage somewhere useful to go. Protection magic, especially active and fierce protection. Courage work, calling on the force that moves through fear rather than around it. Justice work, especially on behalf of those who cannot fight for themselves. Physical practice as spiritual practice, martial arts, running, weightlifting, dancing, standing your ground in a situation where you've been retreating, healing shame around anger, reclaiming the right to feel what you feel, and boundary enforcement when boundaries have been repeatedly violated. So, in your approach, Aries responds to honesty and physical energy. He's not really like an elaborate ritual deity. He's more like a deity of action. And the most powerful way to work with him is often through the body. So like movement, sweat, channeling that anger physically before bringing it into the ritual space. Also, something important to note is be honest with him about what you're angry about. He won't judge you for the intensity of it. He will only ask, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, anger as direction.
Offerings include red candles, red wine or pomegranate juice, physical movement offered as devotion, weapons or weapon imagery, dragon's blood incense, written declarations of what you are angry about and what you are going to do about it, carnelian or red jasper, and iron objects. Correspondences include carnelian, red jasper, bloodstone, garnet, and black tourmaline. The colors red, blood orange, black, and iron gray. Dragon's blood, tobacco, thistle, garlic, and pepper. Dogs, vultures, woodpeckers, barn owls, and serpents. And then spears, shields, helmets, torches, and swords. The planet Mars, the day of Tuesday, and the number 5.
I like Aries. I fuck with Aries.
I like Aries a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Last, but certainly not least, we have Hephaestus, the god of fire, the forge, craft, technology, and the creative power born from rejection. So, Hephaestus is the god of fire, the forge, metalworking, craftsmanship, sculpture, and technology. He's the divine blacksmith. He's the maker of the gods' weapons, armor, palaces, and most of their most powerful magical objects. The thunderbolt Zeus uses to govern the cosmos, Hephaestus. Achilles' nearly impenetrable armor, Hephaestus made. Hermes' winged sandals, Hephaestus made.
Wow.
Aphrodite's golden girdle, Hephaestus. The net that trapped Ares and Aphrodite, also Hephaestus. He builds the instruments of everybody else's power.
Damn.
And he's the only Olympian who is physically disabled.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. He's making power for other people. But he can't have all the power himself.
He is also the only Olympian who works.
Shocking.
So he is, again, physically disabled, scarred, and works in a forge rather than shining on a throne.
There's a metaphor here.
His origin stories are very painful and very sad, but I really do want to share them because they are central to pretty much everything that he represents. So there's a few versions that all kind of end up in the same place, but in one version, he's born to Hera alone. She looked at the baby and found him ugly and imperfect, and so she threw him off of Olympus. He fell for a day and landed on the island of Lemnos, where his legs were broken and deformed. He was raised by the people there and became the greatest craftsman in existence. In other versions, he was born to Zeus and Hera together. When Zeus and Hera were fighting and Zeus hung Hera from the sky by golden chains, Hephaestus tried to defend his mother, and then in this version, this is where he's thrown off of Olympus by Zeus. He again fell for a day and landed in the sea, where the sea nymph Thetis rescued and raised him. Both stories agree on the essential facts that he was thrown away by a parent, he fell and survived, but
he was mangled.
Yeah. Then he goes on to build some of the most extraordinary things in existence. He is the definitive mythological archetype of the person who was rejected, found their power in the making, and eventually became indispensable. So, again, depending on the version, either thrown by Hera for being imperfect or thrown by Zeus for defending Hera, both are like profound origin wounds for Hephaestus.
Yeah.
But in the version where he's thrown by Hera, Hephaestus sends her a golden throne as a gift. When she sat in it, invisible chains held her down. No other god could free her, and the gods begged Hephaestus to come to Olympus and release her. He refused until Dionysus got him drunk and brought him back. He eventually freed Hera, and in some versions, this is when he was given Aphrodite as a wife, the most beautiful goddess given to the least conventionally beautiful god. But again, like I said in the love episode, neither of them were happy about this pairing.
Yeah.
His marriage to Aphrodite is the most famous and unhappy of the Olympian marriages. Aphrodite and Hephaestus are fundamentally mismatched.
Mm-hmm.
Their most famous myth is the trap, where Hephaestus crafts an invisible net and catches Aphrodite and Ares together and exposes them to all the gods. The gods all laugh at them. Hephaestus is humiliated. But what I think is interesting here is when wronged, he didn't fight them. He used his zone of genius to create a solution that was more sophisticated than anything else. Like, it was this net that he crafted was powerful enough to contain two gods.
Yeah.
And instead of going and like picking a fight with the god of war, he was like, okay, how do I use what I know best to get back at these bitches?
Yeah, right?
What I do think it's interesting that like he doesn't want to be married to Aphrodite either, but he also doesn't want Aphrodite to have a lover.
Yeah. If I can't have you, no one will.
Yeah, but also, like, again, I have a lot of empathy for Hephaestus, where imagine the first interaction that you have with another human being is your mother looking at you and going, "Ugh, you're ugly," and then throwing you off a cliff.
Where you fall for a day.
Mm-hmm. And then are permanently physically altered.
Yeah, I hate that.
This is where I was rereading this, getting ready. This is how you know I started my period yesterday. Rereading this, started crying.
Mm-hmm. In the Neon Gods series, if it makes anyone feel better, there's a throuple aspect to it. So everyone can have their cake and eat it too.
And thank God for that. All right, so a partial list of what Hephaestus built across mythology. Zeus's thunderbolts, Achilles' armor. This is actually the most detailed description of craftsmanship in ancient literature. It takes up an entire book of the Iliad.
My God.
He created Hermes' winged sandals, the golden automata that helped him in his forge. They're like robot servants. The bronze giant Talos, who guarded Crete. Eros' bow and arrows. Aphrodite's golden girdle of irresistibility. And the golden and silver guard dogs of Alcylonus. And also Pandora herself, the first woman ever made out of clay.
Okay. What?
Yeah, just fun fact for you.
Okay.
So, after his forced return, Hephaestus was given a place on Olympus in a forge beneath a volcano. He is the only Olympian who works. The others feast and argue and pursue their desires while he is at the forge making. His presence on Olympus is always slightly uneasy. He is of it, but not entirely in it. He is the creative outsider who has been allowed in, who is valued for what he produces, but not always who he is.
Sad.
I know. So, Hephaestus is one of mythology's most important figures for anyone who has been told they are not enough, not beautiful enough, not able-bodied enough, not the right kind of powerful, not the one who is chosen. His mythology is a direct, unflinching account of what it is to be rejected by the people who are supposed to keep you, but also to fall and to survive the fall and to build something so extraordinary in the aftermath that the people who threw you away come back to you asking for your gifts.
Ugh,
I know.
hate that.
Bitches. Working with Hephaestus is working with the creative power that lives specifically in the wound, not in spite of the rejection, but through it. His shadow side, Hephaestus unintegrated, shows up as defining yourself entirely by your productivity, making things to earn the love that should have been given freely, using craft or work as a way to avoid intimacy, the inability to receive care without immediately offering something in return, bitterness about being undervalued while continuing to give, or the trap he built for Aphrodite, using intelligence as revenge rather than for creation. His healing edge is learning that your worth is not the things you make, that you are allowed to exist and take up space without producing anything, that the people who threw you away were wrong, and that their opinion of your value is not the truth of it.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Some signs Hephaestus may be reaching out include a creative project calling to you with unusual urgency, fire behaving in ways that feel significant, a candle that won't stay lit or one that burns unusually bright, a pull towards working with your hands, making, building, crafting, or cooking, volcanoes, forges, or metalworking imagery appearing in dreams, a wound or physical limitation pointing you towards a creative solution, the specific grief of having been rejected or dismissed by someone who should have chosen you, a sudden desire to make something beautiful out of something broken, finding unexpected satisfaction in the process of making rather than the finished product, feeling underestimated, and a quiet, fierce knowledge that those people are wrong. Ways to work with Hephaestus include creative work of any kind, especially making things with your hands, healing the wound of parental rejection or being told you are not enough, finding your power in the specific place where you were hurt, crafting magical tools, altars, or objects, the act of making as devotion, technology and innovation, transmutation work, reclaiming your worth independent of others' assessment of it, or fire magic and working with the transformative energy of flame. Hephaestus responds to the act of making. The most powerful offering you can give him is something that you created yourself, whether it be a drawing, a poem, a piece of food you cooked, a candle you rolled, a piece of jewelry you assembled. He does not really need elaborate ritual. He needs to see you creating. He needs to see you use the gifts that you have, even if no one else has noticed them yet. He's also profoundly responsive to honest acknowledgement of the wound. He's not so, like, you don't have to be healed by the time you come to him, but you do need to say, like, you do need to acknowledge that it's there.
Yeah.
So, some offerings for Hephaestus: something you made yourself, fire, a candle lit in his honor, or a safe outdoor fire, metal objects or coins, tools, a small tool placed on the altar, amber, frankincense or smoky incense, orange and red candles, written acknowledgement of something you've created that you're proud of.
I was just thinking, you know, when you put office furniture together and you have those Allen wrenches, and you have like 700 of them?
Yes.
Offering.
That is an excellent offering to Hephaestus. Correspondences include fire opal, amber, carnelian, pyrite, lava stone, and obsidian. The colors orange, red, bronze, black, and deep gold. Aloe, basil, tobacco, copal, and clove. Donkeys, cranes, and quail. Hammers, anvils, tongs, fire, volcanic flame, and wheels, like his forge wheel. And then the planet Saturn, and the day Saturday, and Tuesday, and then the number 8. So altogether, Zeus, Ares, and Hephaestus map onto 3 distinct but related expressions of power, and together they can form a complete picture of what healthy power actually looks like. So Zeus is sovereign power, Ares is embodied power, and Hephaestus is creative power. A complete relationship with your own power can benefit from all 3. Zeus to claim authority that is legitimately yours, Ares to feel the truth of your own anger and act on it, and Hephaestus to remember that what you've built cannot be taken away. I want to come back to that father wound really quick, because that thread does run through all 3 of their stories, and I do want to reiterate it, that Zeus was the child whose father quite literally tried to consume him, to destroy him.
Yeah.
His entire life is an expression of that wound.
Right.
Ares is the son whose father openly hates him, and he keeps showing up anyways. He keeps fighting, keeps going back to the battlefield, and his persistence in the face of his father's contempt is, in its own, like, maybe not always like the best way, a form of courage. Hephaestus was the child thrown away by one or both parents, depending on the version, and built an entire cosmos of extraordinary things in response. So who do you think you're the most called to out of those 3?
I was going to say Aries, but I feel like Hephaestus, like, resonates with me really strongly. I think the part where he was almost like shunned for his gifts, and then like people need him for his gifts later. Like, he's celebrated for his gifts in a way, or his gifts are celebrated.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's something that I'm coming into right now. Like, I used to be like bullied for what makes me quirky and unique, and now it's like that's what makes me successful.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have a little bit of Hephaestus, you know, energy, like that creative energy,
Mm-hmm.
But I also really like Aries. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that Aries is someone that I didn't expect to connect to, but I've been working a lot with that idea of like divine anger in the last couple years.
Yeah.
And processing anger and experiencing anger, because I definitely had that experience growing up, that like anger was not becoming of you. And therefore, you know, you should be palatable and you should, you know, like you should give grace to these people who have maybe like done something wrong, and that you like you're making it a big deal by being upset about it, where like you could just get over it, you know. And I didn't expect like the God of War to resonate so much with that experience.
Right. Yeah, I know. That's what's so interesting to me, is like I feel like if I had just known on the surface like God of War, like no, not into that.
Yeah.
But like God of Sacred Anger, yeah, fuck with that big time.
Yeah, these were the gods that I definitely knew the least about going in. And so reading about them, it was definitely interesting to see, because like whenever I read about Zeus especially, it's always he is the like the villain in a woman's story. And so I'll probably never work with him in any real way, but I do think it's important to have like the full whole picture of him, right?
Sure.
To decide, yeah, I still don't connect with you. I don't really see you as a part of my practice.
And that's okay.
Yeah, from a place of like real whole understanding. And I can still have empathy for like, you're the guy that was, your dad tried to eat you. You know, like of course you're fucked up.
Yeah.
But also you're fucked up and I don't love how you act.
Yeah. Get your shit together.
Let us know who you connect with in the comments. And especially I would love to hear from if you work with Zeus. I would love to know what that relationship is like.
Same. And just a reminder, if you want the notes from these episodes, head on over to our Patreon, demystifymagic.com. You can join any of the tiers and get access to the Clubhouse, which has notes from this series and also a bunch of other episodes we've done.
What Molly said. Next week is our series finale.
Aww, so soon.
Yep. We're going to be talking about the gods of ecstasy, hearth, and we've got some wild cards in there next week. So we'll be talking about both Dionysus and Hestia. And then we've got our wild cards, Nyx, Circe, Eos, Pan, and Nemesis.
Ooh, fun.
So we'll be doing a little bit of like a rapid fire on some of these lesser known kind of outsiders in the Greek Pantheon. And then we'll be covering our final Olympians.
I can't wait.
Can't wait. Until next time.
Love you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison. All our links, from spells to ceremonies to ways to support us, are waiting in the show notes.
We'd love to hear your magic moment of the week. Share it in a review, tag us on socials, or bring it to our Patreon Clubhouse at demystifymagic.com.
And remember, you are the magic.
Okay, love you.
Bye.